When Evan Hart appeared at the Joshua Tree checkpoint gate in August 2019, he was almost unrecognizable, barefoot, emaciated, with a beard reaching his chest, and wrapped in a tattered piece of desert fabric instead of clothes. The young man had gone missing 4 years earlier, along with 2 close friends in one of the most remote and inaccessible areas of California, where every search team believed they had died. But the most terrifying thing was not his appearance upon surviving and returning. The most terrifying thing was what he said about those 4 years, about what had happened to his friends, and about those who were still alive in the deepest darkness beneath Eagle Mountain. Before diving deeper into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest cases. On June 12, 2015, the sky over the Yucca Valley High Plateau in California was unusually clear, despite temperatures already exceeding 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The air was dry, with desert winds carrying dust mixed with the smell of burning creosote from afar. That morning, 3 teenagers, Evan Hart, 18, Lila Brooks, 17, and Noah Keller, 18, began a planned 2-day trip that would become the most notable missing persons case in Joshua Tree National Park history. According to the itinerary left with family, they intended to camp overnight in the Queen Valley area, along a little-traveled trail in the northern part of the park. They weren't interested in crowded tourist spots. Their real goal was to explore the desolate desert area that Evan, an avid photography enthusiast, had studied through topographic maps. Police later reconstructed the sequence of that morning, almost minute by minute. At 8:27 a.m., security cameras at the 29 Palms gas station captured the group's silver Jeep Wrangler, stopping to refuel and buy more water. Evan went inside, wearing a light-colored t-shirt, chatting with the cashier. Lila stood by the counter holding a folded map, while Noah checked the fuel cans at the back of the vehicle. They purchased 6 large bottles of water, 2 packs of dried food, and a box of spare batteries. The attendant clearly remembered the 3 young people being cheerful, with no signs of worry or conflict. After 8:40 a.m., the Jeep left the gas station, heading toward the north entrance of Joshua Tree. Traffic monitoring data recorded the vehicle passing through the 29 Palms entrance checkpoint at 9:13 a.m., after which it disappeared from all park cameras. Throughout the afternoon, they stayed in touch with friends via brief messages about weather conditions, until around 5:45 p.m. when cell signals began to weaken. The last message sent from Lila's phone at 6:12 p.m. was a photo of the desert landscape, captioned, "No signal anymore, see you Sunday." After 6:15 p.m., all 3 devices simultaneously disconnected from the network. 3 days of silence passed quickly. Per the plan, the group was supposed to return to Yucca Valley and contact family on Sunday evening, June 14th, but by nightfall, no calls or messages had been sent. All 3 phones remained powered off. Evan's father began calling Lila's and Noah's parents for information, realizing no one had heard anything since Friday afternoon. After 10 p.m. that day, the 3 families agreed to contact the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. The official missing persons report was filed at 11:40 p.m., confirming the 3 teenagers left home on the morning of June 12, driving a silver Jeep Wrangler, entered Joshua Tree via the 29 Palms gate, and did not return. The case was classified as missing hikers, initiating a county-wide search operation. Immediately upon receiving the file, early on the morning of June 15, 2015, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office activated emergency response protocols, mobilizing a 36-member search and rescue team in coordination with Joshua Tree National Park Rangers. A field command post was set up right at the 29 Palms entrance area, the last place the group was recorded. Initial search zones were divided based on positioning maps: Queen Valley, Old Dale Road, and Pinto Basin. Ground teams deployed from 6:30 a.m. alongside a helicopter equipped with infrared cameras taking off for aerial scans. In the early hours, they only found a few scattered footprints near the Lost Palms Trail, not clear enough to determine size or direction. At 10:15 a.m., a patrol team noted off-road tire tracks in the sand, heading southeast, extending nearly half a mile before disappearing in the rugged area on the edge of Queen Valley. Cross-referencing with the BF Goodrich all-terrain tire specs provided by Family, the field forensics team confirmed the tracks matched the Jeep Wrangler's tires. Based on the direction, the search area was expanded by 10 square miles, focusing on dry sand washes leading toward Old Dale Road. By noon, temperatures reached 109 degrees Fahrenheit, with strong winds limiting aerial surveillance. Rescue teams had to rotate shifts continuously to avoid heat stroke. All radio contact attempts yielded no electronic signals or sounds from the personal emergency devices the group carried. In the afternoon, aerial and ground teams coordinated sweeps of the area adjacent to Pinto Basin, but found no additional evidence. The end-of-day report for June 15 noted, "No signs of life detected, no personal items, no cell phone signals." By the morning of June 16, the operation entered Phase 2, adding Civil Air Patrol reconnaissance aircraft and 10 four-wheel drive vehicles. New teams were assigned to sweep the eastern Queen Valley area, where terrain shifts to gravel mixed with fine sand. At 9:50 a.m., the Southern Survey Team reported to command that they had found a faint continuation of tire tracks in the old direction, leading deeper toward the foothills of the Eagle Mountains. The tracks extended about 300 meters before being completely erased by wind. The scene indicated the vehicle had left the main trail and continued at least a few more kilometers before tracks vanished entirely. SAR teams marked with flags and recorded GPS coordinates for map comparison. By the end of June 16, no other signs of the group or vehicle were found. Afternoon temperatures dropped to 93 degrees Fahrenheit, but sand winds remained strong, hindering visibility. In the summary sent to headquarters, the field commander noted, "Tire tracks match victim vehicle, direction confirmed southeast, likely venturing beyond tourist road boundaries." The operation was ordered to expand another 15 square miles around the northern edge of Pinto Basin the next day, with focus on pinpointing where the Jeep might have stopped last. On the morning of June 17, 2015, around 8:20 a.m., the search entered its third day. Survey Team 4 from the San Bernardino County Search and Rescue discovered a shiny object reflecting sunlight in the area west of the Eagle Mountains range, more than 11 miles from the Queen Valley edge. Aerial reconnaissance images confirmed it was a partially sand-covered off-road vehicle, lying slightly tilted on cracked dry ground. Immediately, ground teams were dispatched to coordinates 33°50'17 N, 115°42'53 C, an area bordering the abandoned Eagle Mountain Mine. Upon approaching the scene at 9:47 a.m., they identified it as the silver Jeep Wrangler, license plate 6HXR283, matching the vehicle in the missing persons file. The vehicle was locked, with no signs of forced entry or collision. All four tires were intact and inflated, but thick dust coverage indicated it had been stationary for at least several days. The driver's side window was closed, the windshield obscured by an even layer of fine sand. The field forensics team immediately cordoned off the area, noting the vehicle's front facing southeast, with the right front wheel slightly sunk into the sandy soil. No human footprints were visible around the vehicle within a 3-meter radius. About 1 meter from the rear, a shallow depression suggested something heavy had once been placed there, but details were insufficient to identify it as a container or personal item. Inside the vehicle, through the windows, the driver's seat was observed in a low position. Gear in P, keys still in the ignition, but turned off. On the passenger seat was a folded paper map, the center section torn from Queen Valley to the Eagle Mountains area, a detail later noted separately in the record. The rear cargo area contained 2 hiking backpacks, a small cooler, a sleeping bag, and several empty plastic water bottles. All items were neatly placed, with no signs of disturbance. No smell of gasoline, no oil leaks, no evidence of fire or explosion. The forensics team opened the vehicle per standard procedure, collecting dust samples from handles, dashboard, and steering wheel. No blood, hair, or foreign fibers were found. Cabin temperature measured 128 degrees Fahrenheit, No living thing could endure that for long. Strengthening desert winds quickly filled tire ruts with sand, forcing the rescue team to work continuously to complete scene documentation before traces were erased. One SAR technician noted the Jeep's position was completely off the main Old Dale Road trail by nearly 4 miles, an area not intended for civilian vehicles due to rough terrain and numerous sinkholes. On tourist maps, this segment appeared only as an unmarked secondary road, mainly leading to abandoned mining areas. When checking the electrical system, the fuel gauge showed 1/3 full, odometer at 36,742 miles, an increase of over 71 miles from the figure Evan's father recorded before the trip. This indicated the group had traveled deeper than planned by at least an hour's drive. The on-scene Lieutenant Sheriff, Raymond Cole, noted in the morning report, "Vehicle intact, no signs of forced entry, no clear evidence. Possible victims left vehicle voluntarily or were compelled to leave." From the vehicle's position, the survey team established a 5-mile radius search circle, marking 4 cardinal directions with reflective stakes. The area had virtually no vegetation, only scattered low shrubs and gray limestone. Under harsh sunlight, the sand surface created mirages distorting visibility, making it difficult to determine missing persons' movement direction. The only footprints in the immediate vicinity were wind-erased and blurred, insufficient for size measurement. By 2:30 p.m., forensics completed evidence collection, 360-degree photography, and sealed the vehicle for towing to the field command at 29 Palms. The end-of-day report noted, "No persons found, no clear evidence, vehicle stopped under normal operating conditions." The discovery of the silver Jeep Wrangler quickly became the new focus of the entire operation. All forces were ordered to redeploy around the Eagle Mountain area, marked as the most suspicious point on the search map. Over the next 3 days, from June 18 to 24, 2015, SAR teams and park rangers alternately conducted more than 16 reconnaissance flights, 6 ground sweeps, and 3 nighttime infrared scans, covering the entire area within a 15-mile radius from the vehicle's discovery site. Each search began at dawn and ended when temperatures exceeded 110 degrees Fahrenheit, yet the only traces recorded were a few unclear depressions about 300 meters southeast of the vehicle. All signs of survival were absent. The constantly shifting sand surface caused imprints to vanish within hours, while dry winds from the Eagle Mountains blew sand over previously marked spots. The county's specialized harsh terrain search team was reinforced with tracking dogs and ground-penetrating radar, but yielded no positive results. In the report to headquarters on June 22, the field commander stated clearly, "No human signs detected, no personal items, arid area, no water sources, survival probability after 72 hours nearly 0. Nevertheless, the operation continued for 3 more days at the victims' families' request. 2 helicopters from Apple Valley and Riverside bases flew along southern canyons to check for possible off-road deviation. But all imagery showed only rock, sand, and sun shadows stretching to the horizon. On the ground, patrol groups ventured into narrow crevices connecting Queen Valley and Pinto Basin, noting steep terrain, slippery surfaces, numerous sinkholes, completely unsuitable for hiking without specialized gear. By the afternoon of June 24, when search hours exceeded 2,000 man-hours, the operation commander reported to San Bernardino headquarters that the 3 teenagers' survival chances were 0. An emergency meeting between rescue forces, park representatives, and the coroner's office was held that night. Based on collected data, vehicle location, weather conditions, time of lost contact, and reasonable hiking range in desert, experts concluded the 3 victims likely left the vehicle to seek direction or water, then became disoriented and died from dehydration. No evidence of foul play or third-party involvement. On June 25, 2015, after 10 continuous days, the search operation officially ended. All teams were ordered to withdraw, equipment and personnel returning to bases. The Eagle Mountain Mine area was posted with closed area, high-risk terrain, signs to deter locals from unauthorized access. The final 47-page summary report was submitted to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, with the conclusion, probable cause of death, exposure and dehydration. The file was classified, closed, presumed dead, archived under case number JT, 2015, L3. The official press summary described it as a tragic accident in harsh desert conditions. The three teenagers' families were invited to county headquarters to retrieve personal items found in the vehicle, including 2 backpacks, a torn map, and a few small belongings. On June 26, local media ran short articles titled, "3 Hikers Presumed Dead in Joshua Tree," marking the end of what was considered the costliest operation in the region since 2009. That same day, the Jeep Wrangler was towed to the county evidence impound for sealing. No further signs were recorded in the file, and all search personnel were stood down, officially closing the case 13 days after the 3 teenagers left Yucca Valley. In the 3 years that followed, from 2015 to 2018, no additional evidence or new witnesses emerged. The video recordings, GPS data and items seized from the Jeep Wrangler remained unchanged, with no requests for further forensic examination. Joshua Tree National Park resumed normal operations, and the Eagle Mountain Mine area, which had once been the focus of the search effort, remained sealed, allowing only periodic inspections by staff. Local media quickly stopped mentioning the case after a few weeks, making way for other news stories. Only the families of the 3 teenagers refused to accept the final report's conclusion of death by dehydration. Evan's father submitted 3 consecutive petitions to the county sheriff's department and the National Park Service, demanding that the case be reopened, citing irregularities at the Jeep scene such as the locked doors, intact belongings, and lack of footprints leading away from the area. Each petition received the same response: no basis for reinvestigation. The case contains no criminal elements. Lila Brooks's mother, over the next 2 years, organized online community campaigns, reposting photos of the 3 teenagers and the 29 Palms gas station video, with the message, "3 kids can't just vanish because of the desert." Though it garnered temporary attention, the movement gradually faded without new information. By the end of 2016, most of the volunteers who had participated in the search efforts had withdrawn, leaving the victims' families in a state of quiet waiting. In early 2017, the county's new sheriff, Captain Ronald Pierce, stated that he had reviewed the file but found no suspicious points warranting a reopening of the investigation. The official conclusion was upheld, affirming it as a natural accident with no criminal factors. The 2017 Consolidated Report of San Bernardino County listed case JT, 2015, L3, under the category Cold Case, Non-Criminal Classification. In 2018, a group of independent journalists from the Desert Chronicle published a 2-page feature on the case, interviewing the victims' families and some former rescue personnel, but the article merely reiterated data that had been released in 2015. No new leads, no new samples, no credible witness reports. Throughout this period, the file was never reopened or escalated. In October 2018, on the 3rd anniversary of the disappearance, Lila's family held a small memorial at the 29 Palms entrance area, placing 3 candles next to a group photo of the friends standing beside the silver Jeep, as a way of affirming they had never given up hope. However, within the authorities, the case was already considered fully closed with all investigative budget and personnel withdrawn from the area, leaving only dusty report files in the San Bernardino County archives. Nearly a year later, on the morning of August 22, 2019, that silence was suddenly shattered. On the outskirts of the town of 29 Palms, less than 10 miles from the north entrance to Joshua Tree National Park, a gaunt man in tattered, dust-covered clothes was seen staggering along Amboy Road toward the residential area. The first truck driver, who spotted him, assumed he was just a vagrant, until he heard the intermittent whispers, "Help please, don't go back there." Local police were dispatched, immediately transferring the man to the San Bernardino County Medical Center. According to the initial intake report, the victim was suffering from severe dehydration, exhaustion, disorientation, and second-degree sunburn on his hands, neck, and face. During initial treatment, the attending nurse discovered evenly spaced, deep circular scars on his wrists and ankles, suggestive of prolonged restraint or wearing of hard objects. At Palm Springs Regional Hospital, when the patient briefly regained consciousness, he only managed to utter one name, Evan. Police immediately documented it and initiated identity verification through DNA. 2 days later, the county crime lab returned results confirming the DNA sample matched perfectly with the records of Evan Hart, one of the 3 teenagers missing in case JT 2015. L3. The information was urgently forwarded to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, where the file previously classified closed, presumed dead, was immediately reopened and stamped in red reopen, pending review. An internal memo was issued that day, ordering the sealing of all old data and transferring the case to the Special Investigation Unit handling long-term missing persons cases. This confirmation sent shockwaves through the entire law enforcement system and local media. For the first time in nearly 10 years, a person officially declared dead in the desert had returned alive. Once Evan Hart's identity was confirmed, the investigation immediately shifted focus to determining how he had survived. In the following days at Palm Springs Regional Hospital, Evan underwent a comprehensive medical examination supervised directly by the San Bernardino County Medical Examiner's Office. The expanded clinical report, completed on August 28, 2019, documented numerous abnormal medical findings indicating the victim had endured prolonged confinement and severe movement restriction. The lead forensic pathologist, Dr. Harold Lemons, described the circular scars on the wrists and ankles as uniformly sized, approximately 2 millimeters deep, with dense scar tissue, consistent with prolonged metal friction over many years. Scar tissue analysis determined these injuries had existed for at least 3 years prior to discovery. Additionally, Evan's right shoulder showed an old malunion fracture, while his elbows and knees exhibited localized muscle atrophy, typical signs of prolonged confinement in a restricted space. His body mass index upon admission was 15.4, indicating severe malnutrition. Blood tests revealed near zero vitamin D levels, along with iron deficiency anemia and signs of immune system suppression. In the neurological examination, Dr. Lemons noted extreme reactions to light, pupils constricting sharply even in dim light, and body recoiling at loud noises or metallic clanging sounds. This condition was identified as sensory overstimulation response, commonly seen in individuals isolated in dark and quiet environments for extended periods. Calluses on the palms and heels suggested barefoot walking on rough surfaces, likely concrete or hard-packed earth. Hair and nail tests confirmed abnormally slow growth, evidencing prolonged malnutrition and lack of sunlight exposure. Chemical traces in the hair showed high levels of calcium carbonate, a component typical of desert mineral dust, but dust samples from the nasal passages and lungs contained finer particles than natural sand, indicating an enclosed environment with poor ventilation rather than fully outdoors. EEG analysis recorded low alpha waves and high theta activity, patterns often seen in individuals experiencing prolonged social isolation or extreme stress. The psychological report by neurologist Dr. Ruth Adler noted photophobic panic disorder, short-term memory impairment, and repetitive sound obsessions. When asked to describe his survival, Evan refused, only repeating the phrase, "It was quiet too long," before falling into prolonged silence. Additional testing found no evidence of injections, sedatives, or drugs, ruling out chemical dependency during the disappearance. All tissue samples and biological data were preserved for future forensic examination. Dr. Lemons concluded in his report to the county sheriff, the patient exhibits signs consistent with confinement or residence in a light-deprived, movement-restricted space for an extended period, estimated at 36 to 48 months. No evidence of direct lethal assault, but evidence of chronic ligament damage and malnutrition exists. This report was immediately forwarded to the sheriff's office and the Special Investigations Unit to assess potential criminal elements. On August 29, 2019, all medical records and test samples were officially handed over to the FBI Los Angeles field office, under federal jurisdiction procedures for missing persons cases involving suspected unlawful detention or confinement. The interagency memo stated, "Evidence suggests long-term captivity. Case requires federal review." That same day, Case JT 2015 L3 was updated to open but investigation ongoing. The handover occurred in the presence of federal forensic representatives and 2 FBI special agents. The medical evidence obtained from Evan became the first basis for reclassifying the disappearance, previously considered closed 4 years earlier, as a criminal matter. Palm Springs Regional Hospital continued to keep Evan in a secure treatment wing, completely isolated, under investigation team and psychological specialist supervision, awaiting further evaluation of his ability to provide a statement once his physical and mental health stabilized. On August 30, 2019, immediately after receiving the full medical records and forensic conclusions regarding Evan Hart's condition, the FBI Los Angeles Field Office officially launched a special operation codenamed Operation Quartz, classified as a federal investigation into possible unlawful imprisonment and homicide within federal jurisdiction. The investigative team included representatives from 3 units: behavioral analysis, crime scene investigation, and digital forensics. The initial objective was to recover all personal devices previously belonging to the 3 missing teenagers in Case JT 2015 L3 for data restoration. According to the inventory in the old file, original evidence included 3 cell phones, 1 DSLR camera, 2 SD cards, and a smartwatch belonging to Noah Keller, all sealed and stored at the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Evidence Facility since 2015. On September 2, federal agents personally visited the storage facility, verified the seals, and prepared transfer documentation. The devices were taken to the FBI's Los Angeles Digital Laboratory for in-depth data recovery. The process ran continuously for 48 hours, using specialized chip scanning systems to read hidden logs in NAND memory and locate final GPS signals before disconnection. Results showed 2 phones powered off simultaneously at 6:15 p.m. on June 12, 2015, matching the recorded time of lost contact. DSLR camera data contained only final photos taken around 5:38 p.m. that day, showing desert scenery and faint mountain shadows to the east. However, the most significant discovery came from Noah Keller's Garmin Fenix 3 smartwatch. In the device's memory, technicians found unsynced hidden location data. After decryption and time correlation, they uncovered a GPS coordinate sequence recorded at 6:14 p.m., located deep within the abandoned Eagle Mountain mine area, precise coordinates 33°49'52. This was a zone sealed since 1972 due to collapse risks, more than 5 miles southeast of the Jeep's discovery site. Watch data also showed an abnormal elevation change, a 36-meter drop in 3 minutes, suggesting the wearer descended significantly, likely into an underground structure. This discovery was immediately documented in the consolidated report dated September 3, 2019, and forwarded to the FBI Southwest Regional Director for a search warrant of the Eagle Mountain mine area. Concurrently, the team reanalyzed 2015-2019 satellite imagery, detecting minor terrain color changes around the mine entrance, suggesting possible human access or object movement. The interim Operation Quartz report noted strong probability of human activity around restricted mining site, possible connection with survivor statement. Based on this, on September 5, 2019, the Department of the Interior and the Bureau of Land Management officially approved a federal search warrant authorizing the FBI, in coordination with Joshua Tree Park Rangers and San Bernardino County Forensics, to conduct field surveys within a 10-mile radius of Eagle Mountain Mine. The warrant was valid for 14 days, including access rights, sample collection, and if necessary, breaching the main shaft seal. Technical units began preparing specialized equipment, toxic gas detectors, underground cameras, ground-penetrating radar, and portable lighting systems. All were assembled at the 29 Palms entrance for transport into the desert. On September 7th, Operation Quartz Commander, Special Agent Daniel Reeves, held a closed meeting with medical examiner and park ranger representatives, establishing 3 priorities: verifying the smartwatch coordinates from Noah Keller, surveying geological structures around the mine, and searching for remaining human traces. Meanwhile, at Palm Springs Regional Hospital, FBI investigators met Evan Hart to inform him of the reopened investigation and request additional DNA, hair samples, and scar photographs for field forensic comparison. Evan did not object, but refused to answer any questions related to his 4 missing years. All results were sealed in a separate file, coded E.H-01. The same day internal report confirmed preliminary evidence supports reopening under federal jurisdiction. Survivor examination consistent with captivity. By the end of the first week of September, Operation Quartz was officially registered in the federal investigation system, shifting case JT 2015 LEL 3 from closed presumed dead to active federal case. The reinvestigation was internally notified to relevant California agencies, with the investigative scope focused solely on the Eagle Mountain Mine and surrounding areas. Preparations for the field search began that day, marking a new phase in the case previously considered fully closed 4 years earlier. On the morning of September 9, 2019, 4 days after the search warrant for the Eagle Mountain Mine area was approved, the federal forensic team, along with park rangers and representatives from the San Bernardino County Coroner's Office, traveled in a convoy of specialized vehicles from the temporary command post at 29 Palms to the coordinates specified in the Operation Quartz report. The mine had been sealed since 1972, located deep in a remote desert area, accessible only by a narrow dirt road. When the convoy arrived, the old rusted steel fence had partially collapsed, and the danger keep out warning sign was nearly buried in sand. The main mine entrance, according to BLM maps, had been sealed with a half-inch thick cross-welded steel plate. However, during the perimeter inspection, Special Agent Daniel Reeves noticed an unusual depression on the south slope, where erosion had exposed a circular metal frame resembling an industrial ventilation shaft. After clearing the covering soil and shining lights into it, the technical team confirmed it was a secondary shaft, sealed with an old steel plate that had newer, inconsistent welds on its surface, differing in rust color from the rest of the frame. Examination of the welds indicated they had been made within the last 10 years using portable equipment. This was the first sign that someone had returned to the mine after its official closure. After consultation, Team Leader Reeves ordered the steel to be cut for access. The opening process took nearly 2 hours due to corrosion on the plate and an outer soil layer over 1 meter thick. When the plate was removed, an unusually cold and damp airflow escaped, carrying the characteristic metallic and moist dust smell of a long-sealed space. Forensic technicians donned air-filtering masks and measured levels of oxygen, CO2, Colorado, and H2S. Initial results showed low oxygen and CO2 4 times higher than normal, confirming the area had been a sealed space with gas consumption. The forensic team split into 2 groups. One entered the main shaft, while the other set up ground-penetrating radar to scan the surrounding strata. In the dim light of headlamps, the shaft revealed a structure of mixed concrete and metal, with walls showing peeling paint and exposed collapse prevention steel in some areas. After advancing about 25 meters, they discovered man-made traces not part of the original mining structure, black electrical wiring running along the ceiling, some ends still new with tape splices. In the right corner of the shaft, there was a welded iron frame forming a single bed, covered in thick dust, next to 2 12V car batteries connected in parallel with copper wire. Beside the batteries was a makeshift electrical outlet, an old bulb fallen to the ground, and a rusted analog box camera with its lens pointed toward the bed area. A small control panel, made from plywood, showed fresh paint marks and a few broken switches. These items were photographed, numbered, and fully collected. Dust samples around the bed were taken with preservative-soaked swabs for DNA, fingerprints, or fabric fibers. Additionally, The forensic team collected air samples at 3 different heights to analyze carbon monoxide and ammonia levels, anticipating possible biological decomposition in the space. About 5 meters from the bed, the team discovered a cylindrical metal container holding rotted material and rubber cords. Preliminary analysis indicated it was the remains of a water storage barrel, now only dry residue. The shaft walls showed fresh scraping marks, with some areas carved with unclear letters and symbols. On the floor, the team found parallel grooves about 40 centimeters long and 1 centimeter deep, consistent with metal bases or heavy objects being dragged. Humidity in the shaft was recorded at 48%, much higher than the external desert environment, indicating it had been sealed and maintained stable temperature. When inserting an endoscope camera into wall crevices, they discovered a severed network cable leading into a darker area deeper inside, but due to collapse risk, the team halted further advance and marked it for later survey. All evidence was collected per FBI Protocol 4.2, sealed, QR-coded, and stored in isolation containers. Each dust, air, and fabric sample was placed separately in sterile airtight bags. In the initial field report sent to the temporary command post, Agent Reeves noted, multiple indicators of human habitation detected within sealed shaft. Electrical setup, bedding structure, improvised power source, camera device, and consistent dust residue suggest prolonged human presence. The park rangers marked all entrances, erected a 50-meter radius fence, and posted signs reading Federal Investigation Area, Entry Restricted. By the end of the day, as the sun set low, technicians completed sample collection and 360-degree photography of the entire interior and exterior of the secondary shaft. A total of 124 images, 37 samples, and 9 large objects were recorded. The field report noted no living organisms, no bones or human tissue discovered, but ample evidence of artificial human survival activity in the sealed space. When the convoy left the area at 1920, all investigators agreed they had accessed a structure no longer merely the ruins of an old mining operation, but one that had been modified, used, and carefully concealed by humans for years. On the morning of September 10, 2019, after completing the initial survey of the secondary shaft, the federal forensic team and Operation Quartz technicians returned to Eagle Mountain Mine to penetrate deeper into the tunnel. Based on ground-penetrating radar data and old structural diagrams provided by the Bureau of Land Management, the team identified an underground chamber at approximately 35 meters depth, likely a subsidiary mining level used before closure. The descent was a long slope covered in sand and debris, wide enough for one person to walk hunched over. The technical team drilled test holes to measure gas levels and structural stability. When readings showed no collapse risk, 2 forensic investigators, Special Agent Daniel Reeves and 1 park ranger, equipped with safety harnesses, lights, and air filtering masks, entered. The air was cold and thick, with a damp smell mixed with rust. After about 10 meters, lights revealed a small space roughly 6 square meters, low ceiling, floor lined with old wooden planks, many rotted. In the left corner, amid dust and sand, they discovered 2 long objects, wrapped tightly in opaque white nylon, placed parallel with heads toward the wall. The nylon wraps were covered in about 5 centimeters of sand, indicating they had been there for a long time. Team leader Reeves immediately ordered a halt and notified the temporary command post of the discovery. The area was photographed in full, scene numbered, and positions precisely measured. After confirming no toxic gas buildup, the forensic team carefully cut a corner of the nylon on one wrap, revealing dark blonde hair still intact, along with a dry, dust-covered skull. The rest of the body had fully decomposed, leaving only dry tissue adhered to bone. The second wrap was similar, containing an adult body, smaller with dark brown hair. Both remains showed no signs of binding or restraint, nor obvious bone fractures or trauma. The scene indicated they lay peacefully, without struggle, bodies parallel about half a meter apart. On the ground nearby, There was a rectangular metal lunchbox, partially rusted, lid engraved with "Emater" using a sharp object, deep and uneven strokes. Inside the box were only a few charred plastic pieces and a small metal object resembling a battery cap. Nearby was a rotted cloth sheet and the metal frame of a half-burned rechargeable lantern. The entire area was sealed off, illuminated with low-power LED lights to avoid disturbing dust. The forensic team began collecting air, dust, and sediment samples from the nylon surfaces. Temperature in the chamber was 62 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity 58%, sufficient to preserve dry tissue for years. Upon detailed examination, technicians noted the nylon wrapping the bodies was secured with gray industrial electrical tape, wound right-handed, consistent with a right-handed person. A long hair strand on the outer surface of the first wrap was removed for DNA sampling. After completing photography and notes, the two nylon wraps were placed in specialized transport bags and brought to the surface for examination. This process took over 4 hours due to narrow terrain and structural safety needs. When the remains were extracted, the evidence transport vehicle immediately left, heading directly to the San Bernardino County Forensic Lab under FBI escort. Examination began that night. On-site rapid DNA testing matched records of 2 missing persons from 2015, Lila Brooks and Noah Keller. Reference DNA from relatives was reconfirmed on the morning of September 11th, with 99.99% match probability. The county coroner's preliminary report concluded remains correspond to missing subjects, LB and NK, probable time of death, late 2016. Cause of death consistent with asphyxia due to environmental oxygen depletion. No trace of blunt force trauma or defensive injuries. In other words, they died from oxygen deprivation in a sealed environment with no signs of assault or coercion. Aside from the engraved Mr. Lunchbox, no other personal items were found. Soil samples around the remains showed elevated carbon monoxide, suggesting possible smoke or toxic gas accumulation at time of death. In the scene report, Agent Reeves noted, "Scene indicates passive death due to suffocation. Positioning of remains suggests intentional placement." After collecting all evidence, the team erected a 100-meter steel fence around the area, installed temporary surveillance cameras, and sealed the shaft with new steel plates. All mine activity was suspended until forensic analysis completion. By the end of September 11th, the temporary command post at 29 Palms received a 24-page compiled report confirming the 2 bodies found in the deepest level of Eagle Mountain shaft belonged to the 2015 missing group. Evidence samples including the metal lunchbox, battery pieces, rotted fabric, tape, and sediment were sealed, federally coded, and transferred to the main FBI lab in Los Angeles for trace DNA, metal, and gas analysis. All personnel involved signed confidentiality agreements and withdrew from the area upon completion. The excavation ended at 1855, marking the first time in 4 years authorities found physical evidence determining the fate of 2 of the 3 missing teens from Joshua Tree. Immediately after DNA results confirmed the identities of the 2 bodies found in the deep level of Eagle Mountain Mine, the Operation Quartz investigation team shifted focus to tracing the origin of the only remaining evidence item at the scene, the metal lunchbox engraved with MR. On September 12, 2019, forensic technicians at the Los Angeles lab completed analysis of fingerprints and microscopic traces on the metal surface. Fingerprints were unclear due to oxidation, but the MR engraving was determined to be hand-carved with a sharp metal tool, uneven pressure, indicating a right-handed person with mechanical skills. This report was sent to the Federal Employment Records Analysis Team for cross-referencing personnel who worked at Eagle Mountain Mine before closure. Archived records from Kaiser Steel Corporation, operator until 1972, were digitized and matched against current resident data. Of 41 individuals with initials MR, only one had a nearby address and mechanical engineering background, Marcus Reed, born 1972, age 47. Former maintenance engineer at the Department of Defense's Ryan Airfield Radar Base, about 60 miles from Joshua Tree. Reed's personnel file showed he was forced to resign in April 2012 after an internal investigation for locking a lab door during work hours to test feedback noise, trapping a colleague in a sealed room for nearly 2 hours. Though no injury occurred and no charges filed, Reed was evaluated as having tendencies toward unusual behavior related to sound control in confined spaces. After leaving Ryan Airfield, he moved to Desert Center, a nearly abandoned small town along Interstate 10, just over 15 miles from Eagle Mountain Mine. Background checks revealed Reed lived alone in an old trailer on the town's western edge, off-grid, using a generator and self-built solar battery system. He received civil engineer veteran benefits, had no criminal record, but 2014 Department of Labor medical records noted symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder related to environmental sound control. This information drew immediate investigative attention. Agent Daniel Reeves requested the Behavioral Analysis Unit to compare Reed's DNA in the National CODIS database. The sample was collected in 2012 during the Ryan Airfield investigation. Preliminary results showed an 82% match with unidentified DNA on the lunchbox lid, sufficient to place him as primary suspect. Concurrently, the team accessed tax and financial records. Reed had one local bank account, no steady income, with most transactions for mechanical supplies, wiring old analog cameras, and car batteries, items matching those found in the shaft. Financial reports noted his last transaction in June 2019, purchasing industrial batteries and copper cable worth $480 from a store in Indio, California. Based on these facts, the FBI formally opened suspect file, subject MR47, identifying Marcus Reed for interrogation. On September 14, 2019, a federal background check warrant was issued, allowing surveillance of Reed's movements, property, and contacts within California. An Operation Quartz investigative team was dispatched to Desert Center for preliminary residence survey. Initial observations showed Reed lived in isolation on nearly 2 hectares of arid land, surrounded by corrugated metal fencing, containing old equipment, battery barrels, and self-built metal antennas. The nearest neighbor, over a mile away, reported rarely seeing him out during the day, only hearing generator noise at night and faint light from the trailer. When asked about the 2015 disappearances, the neighbor said Reed once mentioned people who ruin the desert's quiet. The surveillance report that day stated, "Subject exhibits isolationist behavior, high reclusiveness, and strong association with area proximate to crime scene." Given the coincidences, engraving on evidence, mechanical engineering profession, sound obsession behavior, proximity to mine, and DNA match, the team recommended elevating to primary person of interest. On September 15, the Central California Federal Prosecutor's Office approved formal primary suspect status for Marcus Reed. File MR47 was opened, including personal history, employment record, psychological status, residence address, and California driver's license photo. By day's end, Agent Daniel Reeves signed an internal notice confirming Marcus Reed, male 47, Desert Center, identified as potential suspect, linked to Eagle Mountain Mine site, investigation to proceed, under federal supervision. From this point, Marcus Reed became the central focus of the entire Operation Quartz case. Immediately after Marcus Reed was identified as the primary suspect in Operation Quartz, the FBI initiated a 3-week period of covert surveillance in coordination with the SWAT Rapid Response Team and the Behavioral Analysis Unit. Starting on September 16, 2019, of agents was deployed around the Desert Center area, setting up long-range cameras and directional audio devices at 3 positions facing the trailer where Reed lived. All of his activities were recorded 24 hours a day, including leaving the residence, contacts, and directions of movement. According to the surveillance report, Reed had almost no interaction with anyone. He only left the trailer at night, driving an old white Ford F-150 pickup truck off the property, heading east on dirt roads, and returning before dawn. Infrared cameras captured at least 6 such trips in the first 2 weeks, each lasting 2 to 3 hours, carrying large plastic bins in the truck bed, with red dust characteristic of the Eagle Mountain mine area, sometimes visible on the tires. The surveillance team collected household waste that Reed left outside the gate on the morning of September 23. It included tin cans, partially burned wire segments, a piece of cloth stained with brownish liquid, and a plastic cup with lip marks. The samples were immediately sent to the FBI laboratory in Los Angeles for analysis. Results returned on September 26 confirmed that DNA recovered from the plastic cup matched 99.98% with the unidentified DNA sample found on the lid of the metal lunchbox engraved within the basement of Eagle Mountain Mine. Further analysis of dust on the wire in the trash also revealed mineral and metal compositions similar to dust in the mine, including high levels of calcium carbonate and silicon oxide, evidence indicating that this man had direct contact with the crime scene area. Throughout the surveillance period, Reed's behavior showed extreme caution. He did not use a cell phone, only communicating via low-frequency radio and homemade transmitter systems. On the evening of September 29, Agent Reeves reported Reed leaving the trailer at 10:14 p.m., driving toward Interstate 10 and stopping at an abandoned gas station 6 miles away. There, cameras recorded him carrying fuel cans and 2 metal containers similar to those used for solvents. There was no indication of meeting anyone else. This behavior was assessed as preparation to move evidence or destroy traces. By early October, as DNA, behavioral, and location evidence all reinforced the hypothesis, the investigative team submitted the file to the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California to obtain arrest and search warrants for the residents. On October 16, 2019, the federal judge approved both warrants simultaneously. At 5 a.m. on October 17, SWAT forces coordinated with the FBI executed the arrest operation codenamed Silent Terrain. 2 armored vehicles moved from the temporary command post, approaching Reed's trailer in complete darkness. At 5:47 a.m., the assault team reached the target, used a loudspeaker to call for surrender, but received no response. After 20 seconds, the team breached the door, deployed flashbangs, and entered. Reed was subdued in the main room without resistance, sitting motionless at a workbench surrounded by dozens of old electronic devices and wires. The scene report noted he was wearing dirty coveralls, with metal keys, a USB drive, and a small notebook in his pockets. The search continued until 9 a.m. Seized evidence included 3 computer hard drives, 7 old VHS tapes, a Toshiba laptop, 11 car batteries, 18 disassembled analog cameras, and a black-covered notebook labeled Desert Log in silver pen. Outside the trailer, police found 4 containers of unidentified liquid, sealed for analysis. All data from the hard drives and computer was copied on-site and then transferred to the Digital Investigation Unit. The Desert Log notebook was considered key evidence. Each page contained columns recording dates, noise level readings, and notes such as stable, too loud, or quiet okay. The last entry in the notebook, dated August 11, 2019, simply read, "Noise returned." After completing the search, Reed was handcuffed, read his Miranda rights, and transported to the FBI headquarters in Palm Springs for interrogation. The Silent Terrain operation report concluded with the note, "Subject taken into custody without resistance. Multiple electronic and written materials recovered, consistent with pattern of control and monitoring behavior." The trailer area was fully sealed off, the suspect's pickup truck was impounded and transferred to the evidence storage lot. All recovered data was coded MR47AR and added to the Operation Quartz file. The arrest concluded at 10:25 a.m. that day, marking the formal detention of the suspect pending further investigation. Immediately after Marcus Reed's arrest, all seized evidence from the trailer, including 3 computer hard drives, 7 VHS tapes, a Toshiba laptop, and the Desert Log notebook, was transferred to the FBI's Digital Forensics Laboratory in Los Angeles for analysis. The data recovery process lasted continuously for 8 days due to many files being encrypted and stored in proprietary formats. Once decryption was complete, the forensic team discovered 147 hours of video recorded continuously from July 2015 to January 2017. The video files were sequentially named Q1, Q147, and displayed precise timestamps. The footage was grainy and low resolution, but the frames showed a basement space identical to the structure inside Eagle Mountain Mine. Concrete walls, metal bed, dim yellow light from industrial bulbs. 3 individuals appeared in the frames, 2 males and 1 female, matching the identifications of Evan Hart, Noah Keller, and Lila Brooks. The first video, dated June 16, 2015, showed all 3 wearing dusty clothes, sitting against the wall, displaying signs of panic. A man's voice was heard off camera, "Keep quiet, I need to hear it." Subsequent clips recorded them eating, sleeping, and occasionally speaking in low voices, always under dim light. Some videos included sounds of electric motors and noise level readings from a decibel meter placed on a table. Every few minutes, the same voice would command, "Stay still" or "Don't talk." From October 2015 onward, recordings became less frequent, and the victims appeared increasingly exhausted with reduced movement. The last video showing all 3 individuals was dated October 29, 2016. Afterward, only Evan remained visible, lying motionless for hours in darkness. In addition to the video, the technicians recovered a series of auto-saved text files named sound_logs containing data on noise levels, temperature, and time in the mine. Each day included notes in the same format as the Desert Log Notebook. For example, September 12, 2015, noise stable 28 dB, temp 19 degrees Celsius, good. The values indicated meticulous monitoring of acoustic environment, light and temperature, behavior consistent with Reed's profile of obsessive-compulsive disorder. This data became crucial evidence, proving not only the presence of the 3 victims in the mine, but also that they were systematically monitored. When the FBI presented preliminary analysis results, Reed was transferred from the Palm Springs detention facility to the federal interrogation room in Los Angeles for formal questioning. The first interrogation session took place on October 25, 2019, lasting over 6 hours. Reed remained calm, answering clearly, but evading questions about the videos. He admitted to having met the group of young people in the mine area in the summer of 2015, explaining that they were lost and looking for water. When asked why he did not report to authorities, he replied, "I needed them to stay to observe." This phrase was repeated multiple times in the transcript, prompting investigators to note, "Subject uses clinical vocabulary to justify detention." When confronted with the video clips, Reed did not deny operating the cameras, only saying, "I needed quiet." They disrupted the sound balance. In the final part of the session, Agent Daniel Reeves presented the DNA results and physical evidence. Reed was silent for several minutes, then said softly, "I didn't harm anyone. They just couldn't adapt to the silence." When asked about the deaths of Lila and Noah, he did not answer directly, only mentioning the air supply in the mine was weak, and "I didn't know how to fix the filter." On the table in front of him, the Desert Log Notebook was open to pages with meticulous daily decibel and temperature recordings. Below the data columns, many later pages contained scattered notes. Noise returned. Must reduce. Behavioral analysts concluded that Reed was obsessed with absolute quiet, viewing human sounds as a threat to the environmental order he sought to maintain. The interrogation team's preliminary conclusion stated, "Subject exhibits obsessive control patterns, justifies captivity as experiment on sound isolation." When the FBI submitted the results to the federal prosecutor, they cataloged 147 hours of video, 612 pages of sound and temperature data, and 74 matching notes between digital files and the handwritten notebook. Each video segment was cross-referenced by frame, lighting, and camera angle, with the examined mine structure showing complete alignment with camera positions at the scene. Additionally, the technical team found on the hard drives multiple audio recordings of fans, breathing, and metal clanging, interspersed with Reed's voice saying silence makes it perfect. These findings formed a seamless chain of evidence, proving he was the individual who held the three teenagers in the mine, from mid-2015 until two died in late 2016. In the consolidated report, sent to the FBI Southwest Regional Director on November 2, 2019, the final line clearly stated, primary subject confirmed as captor. Motivation derived from obsessive acoustic control. Statement admitted, I kept them to observe. Reed was reclassified from person of interest to charged suspect, and file MR47 was expanded with all electronic data, the notebook, and original audio recordings, marking the end of the interrogation and evidence analysis phase while strengthening the legal foundation for subsequent criminal prosecution. After Marcus Reed's arrest and confirmation of all evidence from the hard drives and video segments, the FBI decided to proceed with a formal statement from Evan Hart, the sole survivor, after medical and psychological experts assessed that his physical health and mental state were stable enough to provide information. The statement session was conducted at a federal protective facility in Los Angeles on November 8, 2019, with Agent Daniel Reeves, behavioral psychologist Dr. Ruth Adler, and a representative from the U.S. Attorney's Office present. Evan appeared exhausted but lucid, speaking in a low, halting voice, sometimes pausing due to coughing and shortness of breath. He began recounting the entire sequence, starting from the afternoon of June 12, 2015. The moment they drove their Jeep Wrangler off the main road to photograph the Eagle Mountain area, according to him, they spotted a man standing near an old electrical substation on the desert edge, waving them over and saying he knew a shortcut to an ancient waterhole in the canyon. As dusk was approaching, the group agreed to stop. The man introduced himself as Marcus, dressed like a mine worker, speaking calmly in an even, somewhat commanding tone. When they followed him about 300 meters to a rock face, Reed suddenly drew a handgun, ordered them to drop their phones, and descend into the mine through a steel hatch hidden under sand. Evan recounted, I thought he was just bluffing, but when we saw the gun, we had to comply. We went down in order. Noah first, then me, and Lila last. The descent was narrow and deep, with no light except a dim bulb below. The first level was a small room with a metal bed, metal table, and a fixed camera in the corner. Reed locked the hatch from outside and then observed them via camera for hours. Evan said they were forced to live in the mine starting that night. He brought down some water, canned goods, and blankets, then left without further explanation. In the early days, Reed appeared every morning, measuring noise with a handheld device and demanding absolute silence. Every action, eating, talking, moving, required permission. If noise was too loud, he would cut power and leave them in darkness for hours. Evan described life in the mine as a heavy silence where even the air seemed to freeze. Nighttime temperatures dropped low, water dripped from the ceiling, and the smell of damp metal was constant. Food was provided every 2 days, mostly dry cereal, canned fish, and boiled water. They were not allowed to touch the door or ask why they were imprisoned. As time passed, Lila grew weaker from a respiratory infection. She coughed continuously for days, but Reed refused medicine, only noting in his log, noise plus coughing, unstable. By late December 2016, Lila could no longer get up. Evan recalled, he came down, looked at her for a few seconds, then said she's too loud now, turned off the light, and left. The next morning, she wasn't breathing. Reed then wrapped Lila's body in plastic and moved it to an adjacent room, sealing it with tape. From then on, he began separating them. Noah was moved to another room, while Evan was kept on the upper level near the metal bed. They were no longer allowed to see each other. Evan only heard Noah screaming one night around mid-February 2017, followed by a loud metal crash and the door slamming shut. The next morning, Reed brought no food, only adding to his notebook. Noise ceased, chamber stable. Evan believed Noah had attempted escape and was killed. After that incident, Reed became quieter, appearing less often, bringing food only every 3 days, while always wearing noise-canceling headphones. When asked for details about the mine structure, Evan provided precise descriptions of every location, a narrow sloping entrance descending about 30 meters to the main level, divided into 3 rooms, each with hand-welded steel doors and a small ventilation pipe leading to the surface. The first room contained the metal bed, table, and batteries. The middle room was for sleeping. The deepest room was where he saw Reed store fuel containers and sound measuring equipment. Evan's description perfectly matched the FBI's examination map, including positions of the metal bed, makeshift electrical outlet, and the metal lunchbox found next to the 2 victims' remains. When shown crime scene photos, Evan confirmed the exact locations where Lila and Noah were found, and clearly identified the bed in the videos as the one where he had been restrained. Details of chain marks on Evan's wrists and ankles fully matched scars and metal wire fragments recovered in the mine. In the final part of his statement, he described Reed as a man obsessed with sound, always wanting absolute silence. Reed told them that noise was pollution from the outside world, and he needed a place unspoiled by humans. Evan said, "I don't think he wanted to kill. He just believed that if everything was silent, the world would return to balance. But that silence killed us." The session lasted over 8 hours and was fully audio and video recorded. When it ended, Evan was nearly exhausted and required IV fluids on site. The FBI's consolidated report after the session was 67 pages long, concluding, survivor statement consistent with physical evidence, forensic results, and recovered video data. Subject Reed's behavior aligns with obsessive control motives documented in prior psychiatric records. Every detail Evan provided matched physical traces, video timestamps, and entries in the desert log, confirming the chain of events from the day of disappearance to the deaths of his 2 friends deep beneath the desert. Immediately after completing the interrogations and cross-referencing all data from Evan Hart's statements, the videos, the desert log journal, and the forensic evidence, the FBI transferred the Marcus Reed case file to the Behavioral Analysis Unit at Quantico to develop a criminal psychological profile. The assigned team consisted of 3 members: veteran agent John Messer, criminal psychologist Dr. Ruth Adler, and isolated environment criminal behavior specialist Dr. Howard Gill. After more than 2 weeks of evaluation, the BAU released a 128-page report, concluding that Marcus Reed belonged to a rare behavioral category, classified as ritualistic isolationist, provisionally translated as ritualized isolator. The report defined this category as individuals with a tendency to create sealed environments to maintain absolute control over sound, light, and movement, viewing silence as a form of sacred order. Unlike typical kidnapping offenders motivated by material gain or sexual needs, Reed's motive was ritualistic in nature, driven by severe obsessive-compulsive disorder and prolonged social detachment syndrome. In his 2014 medical records, Reed had been diagnosed with behavior involving self-imposed noise control protocols in personal environments, including soundproofing his residence, destroying all noise-producing electronic devices, and using noise-canceling headphones to sleep. The BAU determined that the 2012 incident, in which he was fired from Ryan Airfield after confining people to measure echo response, marked the initial step in the psychological shift that led to the creation of the detention space in the mine. Reed did not seek power or physical gratification from his victims. He viewed them as variables in an experiment to achieve perfect environmental control, a space where absolute silence was maintained by eliminating all sound-producing elements, including human beings. The notes in the desert log clearly demonstrated a ritualized pattern of coercion. He meticulously recorded decibel levels, temperatures, and noise responses from each victim, not for torture, but to calibrate the space according to standards he believed represented ideal order. The BAU termed this perceptual control compulsion, a compulsion to control sensory perception. In this behavioral chain, confinement was not intended to induce fear, but to establish structure. When a victim produced sound exceeding the permitted level, Reed responded by reducing contact, cutting power, or isolating them, actions that led to death by neglect, rather than direct violence. The report further analyzed that Reed exhibited schizoid personality traits, lack of emotional connection, high intelligence, disjointed communication, but extreme focus on a single subject. Data from the journal and videos showed he repeatedly used imperative phrases such as "stay still," "keep quiet," "noise stable," revealing an internal compulsion to maintain absolute stillness. The BO confirmed that Reed's behavior lacked sexual or financial elements. No evidence of assault, extortion, or intent to profit was found. Instead, all actions revolved around the need for control, the core characteristic of the ritualistic isolationist category. In the conclusion, Dr. Gill wrote, "Marcus Reed did not kill out of hatred or desire. He destroyed human lives to preserve a concept, pure silence, that he believed was the only way to keep the world in balance." The report also analyzed the progression of his behavior. In the early phase, Reed sought out individuals who were curious or bold enough to enter his private space. In the later phase, he maintained confinement as a daily ritual, where measurements and note-taking became substitutes for social interaction. The deaths of Lila and Noah were classified by the BOE as unintended consequence of environmental deprivation, unintended outcomes of sealed control, where oxygen deprivation caused their deaths. However, the failure to provide aid, combined with continued data logging afterward, was viewed as evidence of absolute lack of empathy, a trait common in ritualistic offenders. Voice analysis of the videos conducted by the forensic acoustics team revealed Reed's tone remained steady, showing no anger or emotion, reinforcing the assessment that he saw the victims merely as extensions of his experiment. The BOE concluded that although Reed's behavior had a pseudo-scientific quality and lacked traditional violent motives, it fully met the criteria for the charge of kidnapping resulting in death, as the purpose of confinement grossly violated individual freedoms. The final psychological profile was forwarded to the U.S. Attorney's Office, along with prosecution recommendation. In the 18-page summary, Agent Messer wrote, "Reed represents a pathological pursuit of stillness, an individual who equates silence with existence. His compulsion is order through deprivation." The entire file was archived under BOEU case classification. Ritualistic isolationist, non-sexual, non-financial motive. From that point, Operation Quartz officially had a complete criminal psychology foundation to support the federal indictment and trial process. After the Behavioral Analysis Unit completed the psychological profile and the report was sent to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the entire Operation Quartz case file was transferred to the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California in Los Angeles in early March 2024. The prosecution preparation took nearly 3 months to consolidate over 2,400 pages of evidence, 147 hours of video, 612 pages of entries from the desert log, survivor testimony from Evan Hart, and all DNA and forensic examination results. The trial officially opened on June 10, 2024, regarded as one of the largest evidence kidnapping and unlawful detention cases in the western United States in the past 2 decades. Marcus Reed was charged with 3 federal counts: kidnapping resulting in death, unlawful detention on federal land, and intentional destruction of evidence. The trial was presided over by federal judge Eleanor Ray, with a jury of 12 members selected from Los Angeles, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. In the opening statement, lead prosecutor Thomas Avery outlined the entire sequence of events: 3 teenagers missing in 2015, their vehicle found near Eagle Mountain Mine, the case closed after 10 days of searching, then 4 years later, a survivor emerging, leading to the discovery of the underground cell and the remains of the other 2. The evidence presentation began with forensic reports. Dr. Harold Lemons, who performed autopsies on Evan Hart and the 2 bodies recovered from the mine, confirmed that the cause of death for Leila Brooks and Noah Keller was asphyxiation due to oxygen deprivation, with time of death in late 2016. Lemons also presented analysis of scar tissue on Evan's body, showing marks consistent with prolonged restraint, using metal wire found in the cell. Next, the prosecution displayed 12 crime scene photographs depicting the metal bed, batteries, and metal lunchbox engraved MR, along with matching DNA from Reed, recovered from a plastic cup at his home. Digital evidence dominated much of the trial. FBI technical experts played excerpts from the 147 hours of video recovered from Reed's computer hard drive, showing the 3 victims in the cell, Reed measuring noise levels, and his voice saying, "Keep quiet, I need to hear it." The jury heard a 2-minute 47-second audio clip capturing the moment Reed noted, "Noise returned. Must reduce," just before the 2 victims died. The prosecutor called this audio evidence of controlling intent leading to death. Following the physical evidence, survivor witness Evan Hart was called to the stand on the 5th day of trial. He appeared gaunt, speaking in a soft but clear voice, describing the abduction, confinement, and witnessing the deaths of his 2 friends. His testimony aligned almost perfectly with the video content, timeline in the desert log, and forensic conclusions. When asked by the prosecutor about Reed's motive, Evan replied, "He didn't hate anyone, he just wanted everything silent, even if it meant making people stop breathing." The statement left the courtroom in complete silence. In the expert witness phase, Dr. Ruth Adler, behavioral psychologist, explained the concept of ritualistic isolationist, describing Reed as suffering from severe sound-related obsessive-compulsive disorder, but fully aware that his actions were illegal. She stated, "He is not insane, he is rational. He knew how to build structures to conceal crime, monitor victims, and record results." The defense was handled by Reed's court-appointed attorney, Martin Cole. In his opening statement, Cole acknowledged that his client was obsessed with silence, but argued that Reed suffered from severe mental disorder and could not be held fully criminally responsible. He cited prior medical reports on OCD and invoked 18 U.S.C. Section 17, insanity defense, claiming Reed lacked capacity to appreciate the consequences of his actions at the time of the offenses. However, the prosecution immediately countered with evidence showing planning, calculation, and concealment. Reed had welded the mine entrance shut, installed cameras, used coded entries in his log, and after the 2 victims died, continued journaling for months, proving awareness and intentional control. On the 12th day of trial, Dr. Howard Gill, BAU behavior specialist, was called to rebut the incapacity argument. He testified, Reed experienced no hallucinations. He took orders from no one. He acted within a framework of absolute belief he created himself and knew it was against the law. His testimony, combined with a 128-page BAU report, severely undermined the mental illness defense. Judge Ray, in her jury instructions, also emphasized that obsessive-compulsive disorder does not equate to legal incapacity. Meanwhile, Reed remained silent throughout most of the proceedings, only taking notes when videos were played. On the 15th day, the defense requested that Reed be allowed to address the court. He stood, speaking in a low voice, briefly, "I didn't want anyone to die. I just wanted to prove the world could be quiet. But they ruined it." The statement was immediately cited by the prosecution as confirmation of personal motive, evidence that Reed understood the consequences. Closing arguments lasted 2 days. Prosecutor Avery summarized, "The defendant did not kill for desire or money, but for obsession. But the law does not allow obsession to kill." 3 young people entered the desert and did not return. 1 survived to tell the story. 2 died for the silence he worshipped. Attorney Cole weakly countered that pathology cannot be punished as crime, but the jury was unconvinced. After 11 days of trial, including 31 witnesses, 482 physical and digital exhibits, and over 200 hours of recorded testimony, the case entered deliberation. On June 21, 2024, after 8 hours of closed discussion, the jury returned a unanimous verdict. Marcus Reed was found guilty of kidnapping, resulting in death, under 18 U.S.C. Section 1201, the federal charge carrying the highest penalty, along with the lesser counts of unlawful detention on federal land and destruction of evidence. She emphasized that under federal law, motive is not a mitigating factor when the outcome is victim death, especially in prolonged detention cases. In her sentencing remarks, she said, "You created a world of only silence and took away the voices, breath, and lives of young people. The law cannot bring them back, but it can ensure that your silence lasts forever behind bars." The sentence imposed was life imprisonment without parole, to be served at the federal ADX Florence Supermax facility in Colorado, the highest security prison in the United States, reserved for especially dangerous federal offenders. The decision was based on recommendations from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice to ensure no possibility of communication, recidivism, or external exploitation. Reed was escorted from the courtroom immediately after sentencing, showing no reaction and not looking back. Victim family representatives sat in the front row. Lila Brooks's mother broke down in tears, while Evan's father simply bowed his head, gripping his hands tightly. The prosecution offered no comment, but the Department of Justice press release issued the same day stated, "The Marcus Reed case demonstrates the unrelenting effort of the federal justice system in pursuing and closing missing persons cases once thought hopeless." That same day, the FBI released a 42-page summary report to the director, affirming that scientific, behavioral, and legal evidence proved Reed's systematic criminal conduct beyond reasonable doubt. The report also confirmed that federal file JT 2015 L3 was officially closed on June 21, 2024, nearly 9 years after the 3 teenagers disappeared in Joshua Tree. In the closing entry, the final line noted, "Case status closed, conviction secured, no appeal." That afternoon, Reed was transferred from federal detention in Los Angeles aboard a U.S. Bureau of Prisons aircraft to ADX Florence, Colorado. There, he was classified for supermax confinement, isolated 23 hours per day in a 7-square-meter cell with no direct contact with other inmates. Per facility rules, all external sound is minimized, creating an environment of near absolute quiet, ironically exactly what Reed once pursued by taking others' lives. The press described this as a perfectly paradoxical outcome, where the silence-obsessed offender must now live in silence imposed by the law. On June 22, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office and Joshua Tree National Park Management issued a joint statement thanking federal cooperation and announcing the removal of temporary investigative barriers around Eagle Mountain Mine after nearly 5 years of sealing. A small plaque was temporarily erected, reading "In memory of those who lost their voices." All physical evidence, including videos, journal, and forensic data, was transferred to the federal archives at Quantico for long-term preservation. That day, Operation Quartz was deemed complete, a nearly 10-year investigation with full resolution in both legal and investigative terms. From then on, the 2015 Joshua Tree disappearance was officially closed in federal records, becoming a landmark example of the FBI's ability to reopen and resolve cold cases, ending nearly a decade of searching for truth in California's silent desert. 3 months after the verdict was announced, and Marcus Reed was transferred to the ultra-secure ADX Florence facility, the Federal Bureau of Investigation officially released the final report on the case titled Desert Captivity Case Study. The 164-page document, published in September 2024, became the FBI's first reference material on the ritualistic isolationist criminal pattern, a rare form of ritualistic captivity behavior. The report is divided into 3 sections: the investigation process, behavioral analysis, and recommendations for improving the handling of long-term missing persons cases. In the introduction, the FBI director described the Joshua Tree case as proof of the ability to reopen cold cases using forensic technology and behavioral analysis, emphasizing that persistence is the deciding factor between silence and truth. The report also details the tools used, from recovering data from Noah Keller's smartwatch, analyzing air samples in the bunker, to cross-referencing DNA through the expanded CODIS system. Experts consider it a model investigation incorporated into the training curriculum at the FBI Academy in Quantico for new agents. Concurrent with the report's release, the victims' families announced the establishment of the Desert Light Foundation, a nonprofit organization based in Palm Springs, focused on supporting the relatives of people missing in harsh natural environments and improving coordination between civilian and federal search forces. The foundation is led by Lila Brooks's father and Noah Keller's mother, with sponsorship from the Department of Justice and the National Safety Fund. Their first goal is to provide free satellite tracking devices to the public for outdoor activities in Southern California's desert regions, while also funding the Silent Map program, an open data platform sharing information about high-risk areas for losing contact. Evan Hart, the sole survivor, declined to participate in the foundation's public activities. After the trial, he was assisted by the Federal Witness Protection Program to change his name and relocate to Oregon. According to medical sources, Evan continues long-term psychological treatment for prolonged confinement trauma, a prolonged captivity-related disorder manifesting as fear of darkness, avoidance of loud noises, and difficulty sleeping. His treating physician's report notes that he spends most of his time indoors, only going out at night, and rarely interacts with strangers. His family has declined all interviews, stating their only wish is to ensure that final silence means peace, not fear. Meanwhile, Marcus Reed remains in solitary confinement at ADX Florence, in a cell designed to be almost completely soundproof, a tragic irony for someone once obsessed with silence. A Bureau of Prisons internal report classifies him as an inmate silent risk, meaning a prisoner prohibited from contact, interviews, or correspondence. No appeals or requests for retrial have been filed. Reed spends all his time in a 7-square-meter cell with concrete walls and a thick steel door, allowed only 1 hour per day in an enclosed metal cage yard. Prison staff describe him as quiet, compliant, and almost unresponsive to his surroundings. Under special confinement policy, he is ineligible for parole, sentence reduction, or transfer. His case has become a research topic at many U.S. law and psychology universities, particularly in the fields of obsessive-compulsive disorder and sensory control. Back at Joshua Tree, the aftermath of the tragedy lingers. In late 2024, the U.S. National Park Service held a small ceremony at Joshua Tree to dedicate an official memorial plaque for the two victims, Lila Brooks and Noah Keller, placed near the north entrance at 29 Palms, the last place they were seen alive. The stainless steel plaque, 1 meter tall, bears the inscription, "In memory of those who vanished beneath the desert and never returned." Joshua Tree remembers. Below are the victims' names, their estimated dates of death, and a small line, "Evan Hart, survivor." The memorial ceremony was simple, with no press or mainstream media present, only the victims' families, FBI representatives, a few park rangers, and a small group of local residents who had joined the 2015 search effort attended. There were no long speeches, just 30 seconds of silence amid the quiet golden sand. In the final report, sent to Washington that same day, the FBI confirmed that case file JT 2015 L3 was officially changed to closed case. Federal Archive, permanently stored at the Federal Records Center in Quantico, alongside other high-profile resolved cases. All evidence, from hard drives, videos, and the Desert Log Journal, to samples taken from the Eagle Mountain bunker, has been sealed long-term, accessible only for academic or forensic research purposes. The internal closure note ends with final determination, captivity and death confirmed, survivor identified, perpetrator convicted, site permanently restricted. On December 20th, federal police coordinated with the Bureau of Land Management and the Department of the Interior to issue a joint statement. The Eagle Mountain area will be permanently closed. The closure order was issued under federal conservation provisions banning all exploration, climbing or filming within a 5-mile radius of the mine. A new steel security fence was erected around the entire area, accompanied by signs reading Federal Restricted Zone, no entry without authorization. Authorities also decided to temporarily remove the command post at 29 Palms and restore the landscape to its original state. Operation Quartz, after more than 5 years of activity, was disbanded, with core members officially receiving the Federal Distinguished Service Medal for closing the longest-running cold case in Joshua Tree history. Meanwhile, the press republished the full timeline of the case in multiple features, viewing it as evidence of the power of combining modern forensic science with behavioral investigation. Many universities incorporated the case into criminal investigation and forensic psychology curricula. Thousands of social media posts appeared in remembrance, but most agreed on one sentiment: Joshua Tree didn't just lose 3 young people, it lost the innocence of anyone who believed nature is always gentle. At ADX Florence, Marcus Reed remains in complete isolation, with no news, no appeals, and no visitors. Evan Hart, according to his representative, continues to live anonymously in the Pacific Northwest, occasionally writing letters to the families of his 2 lost friends. In one letter excerpt published by the Desert Chronicle, he wrote briefly, "I still hear the desert wind, but now it's no longer a terrifying silence." That was the only time since the trial that the survivor spoke about the past. In late December, the Department of Justice released its 2024 National Investigation Summary, listing JT 2015 L3 as a case study exemplar, a model for reopening long-term missing persons investigations on federal land. The report states, collaboration between local, federal, and forensic technology turned a seemingly closed case into proof of justice's resilience. By early 2025, Eagle Mountain had become an absolute no-go zone, removed from Joshua Tree tourism maps. Sand continues to cover the old bunker entrance, while the gleaming steel fences reflect sunlight like streaks of light across the desert, the boundary between memory and oblivion. From afar, the area is now just an eternal silence, completely closing the final chapter of Case JT 2015 L3, the case America once called the Desert of Silence. The Joshua Tree disappearance is not just a complex criminal file, it is also a mirror reflecting very real issues in contemporary American life, where people surrounded by technology and freedom can still vanish in the modern world due to overconfidence, lack of preparation, and sometimes the obsessions of others. 3 teenagers left Yucca Valley, excited to explore, carrying phones, smartwatches, and maps, symbols of the 21st century, yet only one device recorded the final coordinates, becoming the sole clue after 4 years. This highlights a paradox of today's American society. We believe technology can protect us, but we forget that caution and communication remain essential for survival. Marcus Reed's story is also a warning about how untreated mental disorders can escalate into tragedy. In a country facing a mental health crisis, from social isolation to control obsessions, Reed represents the extreme end of a familiar problem. When people lose the ability to connect, they try to control the outside world to fill the emptiness inside. The lessons from Joshua Tree go beyond outdoor safety. They are about caring for one another in society. Tell your loved ones where you're going, check on your own and others' mental health, and don't let silence, whether in the desert or in the mind, become the price of indifference. In a busy and noisy America, sometimes the most important lesson is this: listen to the silences before they turn into tragedy. Thank you for following the story to the end. If you believe the truth always finds a way to surface, please subscribe to the channel so we can explore more cases once buried by time. See you in the next video, where every small clue can lead us to light amid the silent desert.